Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's live training. We are talking about the third part of my pain recovery trifecta. I call it pain interrupting rituals. We'll talk about what that's all about. We're going to dive in. It's going to be super juicy. Um, get a pen and paper, take notes. And I just wanted to welcome anyone who's new to the group and new to these live trainings. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as you know, you can find all of the past live trainings in the guide section of this group. And don't forget to grab your freebies, which are also in the guide section. The other thing I usually try to mention is that if you see me looking to the side, I'm a one-woman show, so I'm either trying to navigate the chat, make sure I don't miss any messages, but I also follow an outline and some notes that I've made so that I can provide you as much value as possible in this amount of time that we have today. My name's Dr. Redmond. For those of you who don't know me or who are new to my world, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a specialty in pain management, over a decade of experience working with women, listening to women, helping women recover from their chronic pain. And I've worked in so many settings: VA hospitals, outpatient centers, pain clinics, private practice. I've been all over. Right now, I just work virtually, providing education in a group program, which I'll tell you a little bit about later. But let's see. Why don't we just get started? And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And if you want to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what brings you here. That's always fun to see in the chat too. So let's kind of start talking about, we're talking about pain interrupting rituals today. So I want to tell you exactly what I mean by that. And I'm so thrilled to have you here as we delve into this. We'll be kind of talking a bit about the world of occupational science and lifestyle adjustments for chronic pain management. And just to give you a little bit of background on my training is super integrated. So I'm not just a person who decided to throw my hat on and call myself a coach. I actually have a doctorate level training as a psychologist, but then I spent all of my years after that honing specifically in on chronic pain, and then specifically on chronic pain for women. And during that time in some of my clinical work, I worked in a really integrated way with physicians, physical therapists, occupational therapists, trauma therapists, yoga therapists. So I have some really integrated experience. And, so last week I talked a bit about value-centric motion and what that is. And a lot of that was education that I was empowered to learn and empowered to deliver as a psychologist through my work with a physical therapist and the teaching that we did together. Today, a lot of what you're hearing was empowered through an occupational therapist. So when we taught together, she empowered me to expand my scope of practice to include some occupational science and some of the pieces of occupational therapy that's sometimes used when approaching chronic pain. And as you know, sort of my big thing is, I'm not here to fix your pain or take away a diagnosis or even say that I'm going to get your pain from a 10 to a 0. That's just not really how I talk about pain. I talk about pain from a standpoint of, let's get you back to the things that you love, the things you want to do, all of the things that you lost, in a way that doesn't flare up your pain. There are ways to do this, and I dive deep into that in my program, and I teach people how. But I believe that when we can reconnect women with the things that they value and that are important to them, that's when really powerful change happens. And so you'll see that that's how I talk about recovery. But let's begin by understanding what we mean by occupational science. And simply put, it's really the study of how human beings occupy their time, how they engage in activities, and how these activities influence their health and well-being. Chronic pain, as you know, is a complex condition. It affects millions of people worldwide, and it's growing. It impacts not only physical health, but we know that it impacts mental and emotional well-being. And managing it really requires a multifaceted approach, because like a web, it starts to impact every area of someone's life over time. Because we need an approach that goes beyond just medication, beyond just mindset or positive thinking or stretching, beyond those exercises your physical therapist gave you, or any of these cookie cutter approaches, because we want to create deep learning, not surface level learning, deep learning through experience for real brain retraining and real long-term change. And that's what I'm about. And that's where lifestyle redesign comes in. That's where occupational science comes in. It's about crafting a holistic strategy for you as an individual in your unique context, in your unique life. It's about crafting a holistic strategy that encompasses various aspects of life and your day to effectively manage chronic pain and improve your quality of life. So I think a great place to start with this is to talk about homeostasis. And you may have heard this term before. It's simply just a term that is used to describe how our body seeks to regulate itself and maintain balance. And maintaining homeostasis or balance is key to managing chronic pain. That's why it's literally one of my 3 pillars. This involves finding equilibrium in our daily routines, ensuring that we are neither overexerting or underutilizing ourselves, but that we also are attending to our needs and values that make us a whole person. Okay? And the body's ability to maintain homeostasis is crucial for managing chronic pain. Imbalances in daily routines like excessive physical exertion or prolonged sedentary behavior, we know can worsen pain symptoms, even though there are great reasons why we may be approaching pain in either of those ways, or understandable reasons. By striving for balance in activities, women can begin to prevent musculoskeletal pain and strain, reduce inflammation, promote overall physical health, incorporating regular breaks, alternating between light and heavy tasks, practicing ergonomic principles. All of these things can help maintain homeostasis and minimize pain-related disruptions in your day. And psychological research really emphasizes, as part of maintaining homeostasis, the importance of routines and rituals in promoting a sense of control and predictability. This is particularly beneficial for people with chronic pain. So when we engage in consistent daily rituals or routines, this can provide structure and stability, especially when you're in the midst of pain-related uncertainty. And it can come to provide some predictability here. These rituals also serve as anchors for self-care and mindfulness, in intentionally moving about your day, intentionally crafting your day to reflect what it is that's important to you, and also for fostering a resilience mindset in the face of pain, not just a moment to moment, how do I survive, a long-term thriving in the face of pain. I'm just going to check the chat here, just people saying hello. So let's go into a little bit of detail about routines and habits and supportive rituals. What do I mean by that? Because I'm sure, of course, anyone listening has thought about this, right? I'm sure you have tried to keep your routine or tried to add, new behaviors and activities to your day, but I imagine that was also followed by, quote, paying for it, right? This is really common, that we try, right? But then we pay for it. We flare up our pain. I do want to just first talk about how habits and rituals are 2 different things. So they are both a very important part of our lives. Just habits, for example, we wake up, our routine, we wake up, make our bed, grab our coffee, jump in the car, turn on our favorite podcast, say hi to someone on our way into work. This is an example of routine, okay? Habits and routines are often lumped together, but they are distinct. It's important to understand them in order to design good routines that result in good habits. For example, a habit is an automatic urge to do something, and it's typically triggered by a certain cue. The more we follow a cue with a habit, the more ingrained it becomes. And routines are built from deliberate practice, like making your bed in the morning, meditating before bed, going on a family hike every weekend. You have to keep consciously doing the thing or it will fade. Our brain, really needs help before it can automatically do the thing. Habits happen often, though, with very little conscious thought. Our brains can go into automatic mode. Building a routine requires more effort and intention, but routines can turn into habits. But that can only happen if we want this and if we do it intentionally. And this can only happen with chronic pain if we want this, we're doing it intentionally, and we're doing it in a really specific way that doesn't flare up our pain. Another crucial aspect of, kind of this occupational approach and lifestyle redesign is time management. Time is a precious resource, and as I get older, I have to say it becomes my most precious resource. But it's so precious, especially when we're dealing with chronic pain. It's essential to allocate time for activities that promote healing and relaxation, and allocate time for balancing our responsibilities. And I'm also talking about allocating time for pleasant activities, things that align with your values, finding opportunities for play, for finding flow in your activities, or those types of activities where you just don't even notice time going by. And research shows that effective time management can reduce stress and anxiety. And we know these are common exacerbating factors for chronic pain. And by scheduling activities strategically, I've seen women basically ensure that they have adequate time for recovery activities, adequate time for the things on their to-do list that they need to do, adequate time for mental activities, the other things they need to do that aren't quite as physical. Structured time management can enhance productivity, sense of accomplishment, contribute to overall well-being. And when we strategize this, when we structure this in a certain way, we can do all of this without flaring up our pain. And let's talk about energy management too. When we think about our energy levels throughout the day and what that typical pattern looks like. Chronic pain, we know, can just totally sap our energy levels. And this really makes it vital to identify activities that replenish our energy reserves and avoid those that drain us unnecessarily. And the thing that often drains us is that push through mentality that can just drain it all, right? And then we're laid up for the rest of the day. But studies have demonstrated a direct link between energy levels and pain perception. Chronic pain depletes energy reserves. This leads to fatigue and exacerbation of symptoms. So we can identify our energy levels throughout the day and what that typically looks like, where we need to intervene, identify activities that conserve energy, those that restore it, and how we can conserve energy through the activities we need to do or want to do. So some of these strategies can include prioritizing tasks, delegating responsibilities, practicing certain recovery activities to replenish our energy stores. And again, to do this in a really strategic way throughout the day so that you're not flaring up your pain. And the strategic and intentional way that we do this, we practice, we use the science behind habit stacking and creating new routines to make this part of your day in a way that you're used to it, in a way that becomes your day. And we're including things that you really want. So you're basically designing the day that you really want and being able to move through that day with productivity that you sustain, but also with energy, without fatigue, with better sleep, without flaring up your pain. And so these are really the components of pain interrupting rituals: homeostasis, balance, routines, habits, rituals. And I want to just add that rituals are different than routines and habits, specifically because they add, it's not just a thing we have to do or a goal that we have, it's adding meaning or purpose or connecting us with an experience of something. So every if every morning while I'm pouring my cup of coffee, I decide to add, some exercise of mindfulness or 3 slow, deep breaths, right? And so I can really tune into the moment. I can really anchor myself in my breath. That would be creating a morning coffee ritual, for example. So rituals are a really important part of this too. And, these are the components to create pain interrupting rituals throughout your day. And in my group program, I dive so much deeper into this. I talk about the science behind how to create habits, routines, and add specific rituals, how to integrate the new skills that I've taught you to interrupt pain, reduce flare-ups, but also to keep the nervous system in a more regulated state so it doesn't feel as much like it needs to protect you with pain. And then I walk the women in my group program step by step through how to redesign their days to basically lay out a design for their ideal day to reflect what they really want, but how to do that without risking constant flare ups. And the outcomes of that, and I really get into the nitty gritty with them. I have them share with me what they've created, and we talk it through and we work through it. We get into the nitty gritty because I want to make sure that this design that they've created is created in a way that integrates the science behind pacing, movement, energy management, time management, all of this science, and also their unique needs so that they're not flaring up their pain, but still getting back to the things that they really want. So I walk them step by step through how to do that. And the outcomes of that are that women have shared with me is improved sleep, right? If our pain is less flared at the end of the day, that's going to contribute to better sleep. They report sustained productivity, so being able to stay productive for longer throughout the day. So instead of like a push through and a crash, they're just kind of following these procedures of energy management, and they're able to sustain that productivity for longer periods of time, which allows them to be more productive and not lose as much time to those crashes that they're used to having during their flare up cycles. Mood improves, stress is reduced, anxiety and fear. And this happens so much that we think about what we want to do, but then we follow that thought with, but I'm going to pay for it, or I can't because then I'll flare up my pain. And there's a lot of anticipatory fear about what the result or the consequence will be. And so we see that start to reduce and eventually subside, because when we feel empowered that we can go through our day without the interruptions and without the flare ups, we're able to send more safety messages to our brain and continue doing this in the future. Our brain loves to keep doing things that are rewarding for it. So when it feels good, our brain's going to keep doing the thing. I'm not sure if there's anything else I didn't mention. Other outcomes, improved quality of life. I think it also helps people reconnect with their loved ones. They're always their social schedule is often interrupted with pain, so they're able to feel like they can reconnect with loved ones. Maybe they hit some of their career goals a little bit faster. But I think the word that I like to use to encompass all of these outcomes is really vitality. I think when we can feel like we've improved our health in a really holistic way that incorporates our values and what's important to us, we get back that joy and vitality that we lost to pain years ago. And I've seen that happen for women that I've worked with. So I just want to share that bit of pain interrupting rituals with you. So the 3 parts of my pain recovery trifecta are neuroscience informed mind body wisdom. So this is how the mind and the body work together and how to use that to your advantage. It's neuroscience informed. This is not woo-woo stuff. This is science informed techniques to connect you with your body, understand how pain works and what to do about it. The second piece of the trifecta is value centric movement. And so this is aligning movement, the greatest safety generator for pain, with your values without causing flare ups. How to do this, A to Z guide. And then pain interrupting rituals are the things that we talked about today, those components of approaching our day to achieve homeostasis or balance. Again, in a way that doesn't result in flare ups and instead results in sustained productivity. If you are listening to this and you're so curious about what any of this would look like for you in your unique situation, and you want to strategize and talk about how I can support you in that, please comment me here in the training and I will see that and I will send you my calendar link and we can have a 15-minute call just to hear a little bit about your pain, tell you a little bit about what I do and how I can help you integrate some of these things into your day and your life so that you can find what your recovery looks like. So again, if anybody's interested in setting up a call, I love doing these calls. I very much encourage it. Even if you're not sure, it makes a lot of sense. Set up a call. We'll just talk about it. It's no pressure. And so you can reach out to me, DM me directly, or comment me in the chat here. I will see it. But I want to thank everyone for coming today and listening in and attending these live trainings. You can always see the replay in the guide section. And I will be back. I'm not able to do one next week, but I will be back on, I believe it was you'll have to look at the events. I can't see them right now, but April 9th, I believe, is the next live training, and it'll be a little bit longer, I believe, more like a longer workshop. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a great day.